Thank you so much. This is awesome. This is a lot of fun too. So I want to make sure everybody has a great time. And I thought today, instead of bombarding you with a lot of talk, which I may do anyway, but let's do experiential work, because that's how I got started, is when you experience something that it really counts. Because just listening to someone and agreeing, not agreeing, and just repeating that's not why we're here. We're here to live the experience. Before I begin, everybody has a piece of paper and a pen? Yeah? Okay, save it for the remote viewing exercise. So if you want to take notes somewhere else, because we are going to remote view. So, all right, so before I begin, let me see, they gave me all these gadgets, sorry about that, but anyway, so basically I'm just going to explain a little bit for those who don't know me, how it all started for me real quick, so you understand how I am able to remote view and teach you the same thing. And really my work was more about consciousness, but we'll get into that. And I'm going to teach you two techniques. One that's actually, it's the way the government, they used to teach it to the government folks, the soldiers, turning them into psychic spies. And for military purposes, of course, but for me, I have another methodology that worked really well for me that I'm going to share with you. And then we can apply to anything. Was anybody on my panel earlier today? Awesome. Yeah, so you'll be able to experience two different ways, and I think I'm gonna maybe even record when we get to the actual exercise. I'll record it for you and I can email it to you after, so you can keep practicing. How's that? Cool. Okay, so also the idea today, of course, we are at a UFO conference, so we want to maybe keep it UFO related, but really at the end of the day, why are we here? We're here to understand who we are, you know, why we're here, what are we doing, what's the point? And so that's the reason why. Let's see if we can take a minute to bring the energy to this room and see if we can be guided to bring relevant information that is useful to us, that is important to us, that is going to help us, elevate us to the next level of consciousness, you know. And so that's that. We are going to remote view or experience planets, beings, whatever it is that you want. You know, and tomorrow at 4:30, I'm going to explain in more detail the mechanism, how the brain functions to get there, and a lot more detailed information about how you can remote view the future and the past and your parallel aspects. It's super fascinating, and it's more technical tomorrow. Today is just a general overview and experience of whatever it is that we want to experience, okay? So, I'm going to play this little video. Have you guys seen my movie Superhuman? Cool. Okay, there's a little, cool, thank you. So there's a little clip. Does it play, or what do I do? Space bar. Okay, here we go. It's just a minute long. For those who have not seen the movie, we did this experiment live in the film. I'm just going to play it for a second just to kind of bring the energy to the room.
I was at Fort Meade working as a Mideast analyst. What I didn't know is I lived next door to the operations officer and training officer for the remote viewing unit. They invited me over to their offices and sat me down and said, well, what we do here is collect intelligence against foreign threats using a parapsychology discipline called remote viewing. We essentially want to invite you to become a psychic spy. The U.S. intelligence community had been following what the Russians were up to and the Soviets and discovered they were pursuing parapsychology pursuits. And so the CIA was obligated to check this out. And at a certain point, they were having such good success that the CIA said, we ought to be using it against the Russians, and at that point, then it went operational, and they started collecting intelligence against the Russians using remote viewing, and the Chinese, and a bunch of other people. A viewer who is well-trained and has a lot of experience produces information that is clearly remote viewing in origin, is clearly psychic, if you will, in origin, roughly 70% of the time. In the 70s, when Jimmy Carter was president, they were trying to figure out how to base these missiles so that the Soviets couldn't take out our missile systems. So they built this racetrack plant, kind of a shell game deal, where you had a bunch of these shelters out in the desert, and you shuttle the missile randomly between the shelters, and that would make it practically impossible for the Soviets to actually hit that missile. The problem was we had to find out if there was a way that the Soviets could beat the system. And so the SRI, Stanford Research Institute folks, did a study, and they were able to identify 100% of the time where the missile would be. And that information was provided to Carter, and Carter canceled the basing plan because it became obvious that there was a way of beating it.
I've directed that no high technology or other strategic items will be licensed for sale to the Soviet Union until further notice.
It did affect policy. It did affect a high-level government decision. And there is actually a letter from John Warner that confirms this.
Okay, so all this to say, this is from the movie Superhuman, and what we ended up doing was a live experiment. So I went to a remote area, and there was so Paul, you guys, if you don't know who he is teaching remote viewing, and so I brought him in the film, and I invited a friend of mine, and he basically taught her the government technique literally in 2 hours. And I went to a remote location, and she was able, with this technique, to see exactly what I was doing. She had no idea. I could have been anywhere. And she was able to see, sense, and kind of really visualize where I was, what I was doing, what I was touching, what I was looking at. It's pretty incredible. So all this to say, also the reason why I'm showing this clip is because if the government's been using it, for a long time, it means it works. That's not the only validation, but it's just an added validation. So this stuff is real, this stuff works, and so, but on a different level, on a more personal level, here I am when I was 5 years old. For those who don't know my story, I was just there, and all of a sudden I see these beings, these light beings, and we started communicating telepathically. So I realized that I could see them, hear them, sense them, and of course at the age of 5, nobody teaches you telepathy, right? So it was an organic thing. I was picking up all of the information organically. So this is what got me to, first of all, realize that we are not just the physical body, not just the physical brain, but we are tapped into other beings and other realities all the time. I'm not going to get into the details of how telepathy works right now, but the idea was just to tell you that you all probably have come in contact, whether it's through your dreams or meditation, with entities, beings, worlds, even in dreams. What are dreams? It's still you in an altered state of consciousness tapping into other worlds. And so the idea is to do it consciously and deliberately, and that's what we're going to do today. So another thing that happened during this experience is I realized that everything is code, everything is information. So I'm going to keep moving with this because that's not too much the topic of this conversation. But basically, it's all basically code. you receive information, so when you are connecting with another world, another being, you're operating with a different part of your brain. The human brain is just interpreting what I call the larger brain is tapping into. And the larger brain picks up information in codes, and then it decodes it into information that your human brain understands. And all of you are very, very different. This means, even though it's kind of the similar mechanism, but each one of you will pick up information, for example, better through colors or visually. And some people are not visual at all. I do this, and some people say, stop saying visualize because I don't see anything. And so those who think they don't see, it's because they don't know how to see. But some people pick up information as sounds. Some people pick up information as patterns, geometric patterns. And so because of this, it's because your larger brain is decoding information that's universal. It's not like you're tapping into a being that speaks Chinese or French or English. They speak a universal language that gets decoded in your individual brain in the language that you speak. Does that make sense? So when we're going to tap into planets or world or whatever, they're not necessarily, you're going to pick it up in different ways, whether it's colors or sounds or smells or shapes. So I just want you to be open and not worry about specific things like, oh my God, I don't see, or remote view. View, you think you have to see. Well, I mean, you do see, it's more perceive as opposed to seeing like with your eyes, okay? So anyway, that's what happened when I was 5. So I was a strange kid, but that's good because this is where I am today. And I understood a lot. It got me into the field of consciousness, and I did a lot of research with multiple scientists to understand how it all works. So the idea is that the information that's out there is actually it's more of a dimensional thing. It's there, but it's actually here. It's literally, for example, it's everywhere all at once. We have to also let go of the idea that of distance, of space-time, and imagine across the universe. For those who know a little bit about scalar waves go through everything. They go through matter, they go through planets and stars.